Imagine your phone is sitting on the table, innocent and silent, when suddenly the screen lights up. It is a phone call, not a text, not a notification, but a live, synchronous demand for your voice. In that split second, your heart rate spikes, your breathing shallows, and you feel a strange sense of being hunted in your own living room. You watch the name flash, waiting for the ringing to stop. And only when the silence returns do you feel safe enough to pick it up and type those familiar words, "Hey, just saw I missed you. What is up?" If that visceral reaction feels like your daily reality, you have likely been told that you are antisocial, avoidant, or simply bad at adulting. But today, we are going to strip away those labels. We are going to look at the source files of your behavior and discover why your preference for the send button is not a social failing, but a sophisticated psychological defense of your most valuable resource, your internal peace. Society often treats the phone call as the gold standard of connection, but for many of us, it feels like an invasive species. A phone call is a digital doorbell that someone is ringing without an invitation. It demands that you drop whatever you are doing, clear your mental tabs, and perform in real time. It is a synchronous debt you never agreed to pay. You are not broken because you want to hit ignore. You are simply practicing what researchers call boundary regulation. Just like the privacy architects who avoid posting photos online to stay grounded, you are choosing to keep your inner world safely yours until you are ready to share it. Let us dive into the actual neuroscience of why the ping of a text feels like a relief, while the ring of a call feels like a threat. When that phone rings, your amygdala, which is the part of the brain responsible for the fight or flight response, often interprets the sudden noise as a breach of your sanctuary. This is especially true for those who fall into the high sensitivity or deep thinker categories. For you, an unexpected call triggers a literal spike in cortisol, your primary stress hormone. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a telemarketer and a legitimate emergency. It just knows that your autonomy has been hijacked. By choosing to text, you are opting for asynchronous communication. This is a psychological master move. It gives you the gift of processing time. While a phone call is a high-stakes performance where you must read vocal micro-expressions and manage your own tone instantly, a text allows you to engage your prefrontal cortex. This is the part of your brain responsible for complex planning and intentionality. When you text, you are the architect of your words. You are ensuring that the version of you that reaches the other person is the most authentic, thoughtful, and regulated version possible. We also have to look at the generational trauma that shaped this preference. If you are a millennial or a xennial, you belong to the burnout generation. You grew up in a world that transitioned from the quiet analog independence of the 1970s and 80s to the 24/7 performance economy of the digital age. Your brain is already managing a staggering cognitive load from social media, constant notifications, and a world that feels like it is falling apart in real time. For you, a phone call is not just a conversation, it's one more thing on a list that is already too long. Texting is your way of saying, "I value this connection, but I refuse to let it drain my last remaining drop of energy." We need to break down the three distinct types of people who prefer the keyboard over the speaker. Type 1 is the reflective processor. These are the deep thinkers who often replay conversations in their heads at 3 a.m. For them, a phone call is a minefield of potential regrets. They hate small talk because their brains crave depth and meaning, not surface-level fillers. They prefer texting because it allows them to skip the weather talk and move straight to the soul talk. For a reflective processor, the backspace key is a tool of emotional safety. It allows them to be precise, which is their way of being kind. Type 2 is the energy conserver. This is the person who values their home as a sacred sanctuary, just like the people who hate hosting guests because it disrupts their calibrated environment. The energy conserver sees a phone call as a disruption of their mental room. They are not being rude, they're simply protecting their optimal arousal level. They know that a 20-minute phone call will leave them socially bankrupt for the rest of the day, whereas a text thread allows them to connect without the vulnerability overload that comes with live interaction. Type 3 is the autonomy advocate. For this person, the preference for texting is a radical act of self-respect. They understand that in the age of constant connectivity, the ability to choose when and how you respond is the ultimate form of power. They're the same people who don't use social media because they reject the performance economy. To them, a phone call feels like a trap because you cannot Irish goodbye a conversation that is happening in your ear. Texting gives them an exit strategy, and for a nervous system that craves control, an exit strategy is the definition of safety. We need to stop pathologizing the silent person. Choosing to text is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of high emotional intelligence. It shows that you understand the difference between being available and being present. When you refuse to answer a call and send a text instead, you are actually being more respectful of the relationship. You are saying, I want to give you my full attention, but I cannot do that right now while I am unregulated or overwhelmed. Let me wait until I can give you the best of me, not just the loudest of me. Think about the quiet truths we often find in solitude. The people who prefer winter over summer, or those who find peace in a tidy home, understand that life is not about constant output, it's about intentional input. Your preference for texting is part of that same psychological signature. It's a preference for depth over noise, for intention over reaction, and for peace over performance. When we consider the M-shaped future, where adaptability and synthesis are the new currency, being able to control the flow of information becomes essential. Your brain is effectively running a cognitive masterclass every time you choose to communicate through a medium that allows for reflection. You are not just avoiding noise, you are maximizing your signal. So the next time your phone rings and you feel that familiar tightening in your chest, I want you to exhale. I want you to realize that your body is not failing you. It is informing you. It is telling you that your boundaries are important. It is telling you that your sanctuary matters. And it is reminding you that you have the right to curate your connections in a way that keeps you whole. You are not antisocial for wanting to text. You are not cold for ignoring the ringtone. You are a person who values the weight of your words and the sanctity of your time. You are choosing to be a participant in your life rather than a spectator to everyone else's demands. And in a world that never stops screaming for your attention, your silent phone is your most powerful act of self-care. It takes courage to choose the quiet path. It takes courage to tell the world that you will not be available on its terms, but on yours. And as you lean into this preference, you will find that the connections you do maintain become richer, deeper, and more meaningful because they are a choice, not an obligation. If this hit home for you, please subscribe. We are here to keep excavating these daily habits until you finally realize that you were never the problem. I'll see you in the next one.